Hey guys, so let's keep the intro short here. We've got a massive escalation here in the Middle East, and obviously every single time tensions flare in the Middle East, the same voices crawl out of the woodwork screaming for war, with the media amping the message. Israel launches a major attack in Iran, and now the retaliation is ongoing, but the question is, of course, what does President Trump do? Well, let's talk about it, shall we? We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Okay, so we have a major Israeli attack in Iran. I mean, holy crap, Israel hit them hard.
Israel says that they struck Iran's nuclear program and other military targets, and we have now confirmed from an Israeli security source into CNN that top military leaders and nuclear scientists were targeted in these opening strikes. But what we are hearing out of Israel tonight is this is not the end of this. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself, while defending this strike that Israel took, says this operation will continue for, quote, many days.
A brutal blow to Iran from the Israeli military. And now, of course, the response comes. Iran is now raining fiery missiles into Tel Aviv. And of course, as you might expect, most of these missiles are being intercepted by the Israeli Iron Dome. But while the Iron Dome is certainly something to behold, it isn't perfect, and some shots are getting through. News that broke last night, the Israeli equivalent of the Pentagon, the Kiryat military headquarters in Tel Aviv, was reportedly hit.
The Iranians have responded with 3 waves of ballistic missiles. This is Israel's version of the Pentagon, the Kiryat. And the building on this compound was just hit.
And throughout the night, some projectiles did land in downtown Tel Aviv. Some of them are making it through, but so far I haven't seen any reports of casualties. It seems the moment the sirens went off, most people ended up seeking shelter, and so I don't think anybody's actually getting hit once these missiles are making contact. And so you've got this brutal Israeli attack met by Iran recklessly sending bombs into Tel Aviv. In other words, once again, we have the pretext for the warmongers to call for full-blown war, for Americans to suit up and go battle for Israel, or for the blank check to once again be signed in Washington, funding yet again another endless war. The usual suspects in DC are already sounding the alarms, pushing for more foreign military funding. I mean, Lindsey Graham's about to burst out of his freaking seat, but not everybody is so excited and not everybody is so gun-ho. Now look, we all know that Iran is no friend. Their government, unironically, chants death to America. They've been pursuing nuclear weapons, and obviously that's the last thing that I think most people want to see. Iran with nuclear military capabilities, and obviously the Islamic State is funding terrorism across the Middle East and likely across the world. So the logic for intervention is there on paper, but we ought to ask ourselves the question, is it smart? Or can we take a truly different approach? I mean, that's kind of been the Trump narrative, right? He's built his foreign policy image around diplomacy and peace through strength. So maybe instead of letting the neocons bang the war drums, well, maybe before we take that step, we ought to try using this moment to get to the negotiating table and finally get a real deal with Iran. I mean, Iran has taken some brutal economic and military hits lately, and this Israeli one, I mean, this one might be the worst. Just speaking of negotiations, take a look at this CNN report.
But didn't say explicitly that the U.S. supported what Israel was doing. So that's how I started a very brief conversation. And he responded by saying, quote, "We of course support Israel, obviously, and supported it like nobody has ever supported it." And then he went on to say this: Iran should have listened to me when I said, I gave them, I don't know if you know this, but I gave them a 60-day warning. And today is day 61. And then he said, they, meaning Iran, should now come to the table to make a deal before it's too late. And then he said something really noteworthy. He said, the people I was dealing with are dead, the hardliners, to which I just wanted to underscore. So what you're saying is Israel has now killed the people who you were dealing with. And he said very sarcastically, they didn't die of the flu. It was a brief conversation, but my takeaway was twofold. Number one, they are really hoping that instead of escalating the situation, which is what most people, our terrific reporters and analysts you've been talking to all morning, believe is possible, even probable, he's hoping that instead of that, this forces Iran to come to the table. He also he made clear he understands that it could escalate, but he is hoping now that Israel has done what it's done, that it takes another turn and de-escalates.
I mean, Trump's been alluding for months now that he's been in negotiations with the Iranians trying to get an actual deal done, not the disaster that the Obama nuclear deal was, that didn't actually give a surety that they'd never be able to develop a weapon. I guess the question is, can we make it work diplomatically, or can Iran ever reform? Is there a path off the Iranian Islamic Revolution? Well, I guess that's really the debate right now. There's many voices calling not to follow Israel into war here, like Tucker Carlson, for instance. This was Tucker Carlson's warning. The United States should not at any level participate in war with Iran. No funding, no American weapons, no troops on the ground. Regardless of what our special ally says, a fight with the Iranians has nothing to offer the United States. Tucker even said that Trump is becoming complicit in the escalation. He's urging him to drop Israel and let them fight their own wars. And honestly, I tend to agree. I think it's best to practice restraint, especially when the attack wasn't even targeted against Americans. And restraint is exactly what Donald Trump ran on. On a foreign policy standpoint, that's supposed to be the big difference between him and Bush-era neocons of the GOP past. I know when these major events happen, the legacy media creates all this noise, as I said earlier, banging the war drums, and the presentation in this case is as if, something big and unprecedented happened here, kicking off a war that America must now get involved in. But let's be real. Israel and Iran have been at war for decades. This isn't new. We've seen these back and forth tit for tats before. We've seen the Iron Dome in action before. Israel and Iran are actively at war and have been for a long time. I mean, even with the war in Gaza, the Hamas attacks on October 7th that slaughtered Israeli civilians, well, that was likely funded by Iran. So even in that conflict, it's Israel against Iran. It's not a brand new event that's happening here. That's now a mandatory call to war for the American military. So again, let's be smart. Let's be pragmatic, not reactionary and not emotional. And honestly, if you're paying attention, Israel clearly has the ability to defend itself. They're the ones hammering Iranian targets relentlessly. And again, it doesn't seem like they've suffered any civilian casualties in return. So let's take it slow and pay attention to what our interests are. And of course, prioritize the needs and the issues of the American people. Let's seek a position as a negotiator instead of an instigator and see what comes of it. We don't need to follow Lindsey Graham and the Warhawks, who are so desperate to carve that path towards World War III. Don't get caught up in the propaganda. Don't get caught up in the emotions, and simply be patient. And frankly, I feel like I'm saying the same thing I said during the Ukrainian war kickoff. I mean, clearly Iran is showing that they're completely out of control. It's not even strategic. Israel is clearly hitting military targets of interest, but Iran just launches their strikes blindly into Tel Aviv, clearly with the hope to kill mass civilians. I mean, we have to acknowledge the difference between hitting military targets compared to going after civilians. That's obviously a threat to the world order. It's completely deranged, but blindly jumping into war might be a 30-year-long mistake. And it seems when it comes to foreign policy like this, the people want to practice restraint and tackle issues that are important to Americans at home, rather than pursuing military ambitions abroad. Now, if Iran is threatening America directly, American civilians, military targets, infrastructure, or American soil, now that's a completely different conversation. That's totally understandable. But right now, Israel seems fully capable of handling its own, and so maybe there's another more strategic angle. One thing is at the forefront of my mind, and that's that we absolutely cannot have another American war in the Middle East that lasts 20 to 30 years. The people didn't elect Donald Trump to get dragged in Israel's battles. No, they elected him to fix America, and that should be the top priority before starting another war halfway across the world. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.